All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Burdetta Hodge. I'm the president of Tempe Union High School District Governing Board. We will continue to maintain social distancing for safety of our community. The boardroom is closed and the board members are participating virtually except for myself. Our meeting is being streamed live on the district YouTube channel. Also, there will be a recording of this meeting on our YouTube channel no later than Friday. I would like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone. At this time, I usually do my quote. The quote for today is, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." And that's by C.S. Lewis. I would like to, the time is now 7:01. Let the record show that we have 5 board members attending. Well, 4 board members attending virtual and 1 in person. I move that the governing board adopt the agenda. May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you so much, Vice President Garcia. All in those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Do any board members like to go into executive session, discuss anything on tonight's agenda? Okay, it looks like I get all no's. Okay, and will you please stand for the pledge while I recite the Pledge of Allegiance. After it, we'll have a moment of silence. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we will start with the report from our superintendent, Dr. Mendeville. Now we will start with the report from Dr.
Gotta get used to that. Thank you, Madam President and members of the board and our listening community. I want to just review some of the mindset and thinking around the decision to return to virtual learning that began on Monday. And Mr. McDonald is going to share additional information at the end of the meeting. But I wanted to go over some of those details that were highlighted in the letter that was sent out on November 20th. We use a variety of data information from the Maricopa County Department of Health Services and the Arizona Department of the Maricopa County Department of Health Services as well. As was indicated in the letter from me to our families, we were looking at cases per 100, but also the percent positivity. And at the time of the writing of this particular letter that I'm referencing, that's on our website, dated November 20th, the cases per 100 for the district were 213 at that time, and the percent positivity was at 7%. The lagging piece of 2 weeks is of concern. We are fortunate that we are provided accurate and up-to-date information from a member of ASU staff that I will mention in just a bit. But I want to comment on the 7% threshold that used to be in place until that was decided to for a change when Governor Ducey made that announcement about a month ago, to change that from 7 to 10%. That was one key factor. We wanted to maintain that 7%, because that 7% is still high. When you raise that even higher to 10%, that's also alarming. The other pieces too is that while we try to operate as much of as a tri-district as possible, this is one way in which we do that, and that is by taking into consideration the decisions of our sister districts of Tempe Elementary School District and Kyrene. And we do that especially because we share families. And that was another factor there, particularly to our north. A lot of our students have to take care of their siblings when Tempe makes a decision that they will go exclusively virtual. So it does have an impact on our students attending school. That was a decision that was made. It also impacts our employee bases because we share a lot of the same folks and families. Again, I'll mention that. The other pieces, the factors that we took into consideration include the students in quarantine. And at the time of that writing on 11/20, we were over 600 students that had to be isolated or quarantined due to possible exposure on campus. And I can tell you that number has ballooned to at least 200 today. The consequences for quarantining not just students but our staff have an impact on teachers covering classes in a variety of situations, and that has impacted us. Consequently, substitute shortage, that has been an issue since this whole thing began. It's only worsened. The securing substitute teachers for those classes has been cumbersome, particularly in the special education arena, but certainly has impacted all of our schools. The other piece that we just don't have control over, and that's our off-campus behaviors. So many of our families have been really diligent and steadfast in making sure that they're practicing good safety habits, both on and off campus. But, you know, unfortunately, I'm sent a number of photos and from families and students who are not practicing social distancing or wearing masks out in our own community. And that doesn't help our cause to keep cases low, but also in quarantining particularly, because it does impact entire teams of cheer, entire teams of basketball, as an example, just recently. So these incidents put staff and other students at risk, in addition to causing preventable school quarantines. And probably more important than anything else is the projection models. As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Woodbury from ASU, he's the Chief Science and Technology Officer that Mr. McDonald and I have had the privilege of speaking with on a number of occasions. And I believe ASU shares the same information with Kyrene and with Tempe, that the current models predict exponential growth in the cases over the next several weeks. We do have up-to-date data, and that was another piece, because at the time of the writing on November 20, we could project out that things were not going to look too positive for Tempe Union. So those were the key pieces, and Mr. McDonald is going to talk a little bit more towards the end. But I wanted to make sure that folks knew that we were following the science, contrary to what some may think out there. But the obvious fact is that the numbers are worsening by the week. And so that's very clear today. It was clear last week. And with any hope and luck and maybe a prayer or two, the things can change at some point to favor these metrics to the point where we can return back to school. But right now we have to take care of our students and our staff and our families. That is my report, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mendeville. Dr. Mendeville, based on what you just shared in your report, I think it would be helpful if we prepared a position statement for the board to talk about at the meeting on December 16th. I don't know if any other board members think that we should do that. Anybody would like to say how they feel about that? Okay, looks like I saw Miss Board Member Hem.
Sorry, I was trying to mute.
Okay.
I just want to ask a position statement. Could you kind of define what that would be?
Do you want me or are you asking me or Dr. Mendenville to comply?
Either one.
I can help out what that could look like in, I'm echoing right now. A position statement, mainly from the board, and from me, quite frankly, because you've given me the authority to make those decisions, of course, with your information that's given and provided to you. It could be in the form of a position statement, or it could be simply in the form of a discussion at the next board meeting, so it's properly agendized. It doesn't really matter, but if this is an opportunity for board members to have this kind of discussion, that would be one way to approach it. Sandy.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Lau?
That's okay, thanks. So I'm fine with that, but I have some things I want to say in response to what you said, and I can wait until Mr. McDonald presents his numbers because they're related to the science and data. But I also have some things to say in reference to what you just said too.
Okay.
Anybody else? I can't see Board Member Barraza. Do you have any questions? Because I can't see you on my screen.
I do, Madam President. Can you hear me? I'm on a Bluetooth earpiece.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I do. And if it helps, I can verbally just kind of cue in here and there when I do have questions, just really quickly. In this case, I'm just kind of, I guess, a little confused in terms of what is it that is being asked? Is there a specific verbiage that is being asked? I'm just a little confused.
No,
if
we put it on,
I just need clarification.
when we put it on the agenda, we can discuss it. Otherwise, we can't discuss it in the meeting. That's why what I want to put out there, because we should be able to express how we feel about it, and we're not, because it's not agendized. But this is why we want to put it on the agenda for the 16th.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification, Madam President. If I could just hear from my fellow board members if they have any comments prior to me making kind of a decision whether to move forward. I just really kind of need to know the tone of what's going on. So that's all.
Thank you. Vice President Garcia, you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I think I trust what direction you want to go in. If you think it's helpful for us, then I'm comfortable doing that as well. But so long as that we have that open discussion, but I'll defer to you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. Okay, any more discussion on it from anyone? Okay, Board Member Barraza?
Yes, Board Member Lau, was it that you were asking to wait until that portion of our agenda in order to have your input? I would like to accommodate whatever you're asking for. I would like to basically say, make sure that we move forward together is all.
Board Member Lau? You're muted. You're muted.
Okay, sorry. When I pull that up, I get something else. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, Board Member Barraza, I have some comments on what was said, but it addresses an agenda item tonight, and it's the one where Sean is going to present information. So I'll hold my comments until then.
Okay, Board Member Barraza?
With that clarification from Board Member Lau, I would personally like to wait and make sure it's agendized, so that way we can have a conversation. If not agendized, at least to get clarification. I know it's not on the agenda right now, so we can't talk about it, but I think it warrants at least just a discussion really quick. But I think it's something that we can all move forward together, as 5 board members. But we that discussion nonetheless.
Thank you so much, Board Member Barraza. Okay, so we'll be moving on to the next part. Now comes up the public comment. Dr. Mendenville, is there any public comment?
Madam President, we do have a number of public comments. I apologize. We do have a number of public comment, but for section I of the board meeting, not general
Okay.
public comment.
Really quick,
They're all specific to
Dr. Mendenville, really quick,
subject
I
matter.
hear an echo. I think there's a few of us that don't have our mics muted. I think a couple of us board members that have had discussion. I'm just getting a little feedback.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing it too, board member, but thank you for letting us know too.
Thank you so much. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any public comment for right now. We do have it when we have an agenda later on. So next we'll move on to communications from the governing board members. I will start off today. Then we'll go to Vice President Garcia, then we'll go to Board Member Barraza, then we'll go to Mrs. Lau and then Mrs. Hem. First off, I want to start off by wishing one of our executive team a wonderful 21st birthday, Megan Sterling. So if everybody can come together and say happy birthday to her really fast, I think that would be great. So I'm going to start off 1, 2, 3. Everybody can unmute and say happy
Happy birthday
to
to
you.
you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Megan.
Megan Sterling.
Happy birthday to you. Okay.
That was such a bad attempt at a virtual happy birthday
Happy
sing-along.
birthday. Happy
But
birthday,
Megan, we love you.
We do
We
love
love
you.
you so much.
Okay, so also I wanted to congratulate all of our teams for all their fall sports. We had wonderful Corona del Sol who played in the playoff football game Friday. I was at, and even though we did not come out on the winning end, I think our team was definitely winning. They were undefeated all year, so I'm very proud of them. I'm proud of all of our teams in sports. I just want to wish all of our students, I know this is a difficult time. I just want to tell you that we know that you are such Tempe Union spirit that you will
Cannot
come out
hear
on the
you.
other.
I don't
You
know
can't
what's
hear
going
me?
on, but is everyone?
Can anybody else hear me? Can
No,
everybody else hear me?
Staticky on my way. I'm gonna have to call in if it doesn't clear up.
Okay. Does everybody else hear me clearly?
I can't hear you. It's
Okay.
staticky. Is anybody else getting that?
No, no one else.
I have no idea why.
Okay. I apologize. You can call in and then we can,
No, it's good now.
okay.
I have
All
no
right.
idea.
Okay. So just wanted to tell our students that we know you're resilient, and I know this is a tough time, but it will always make you stronger when you come out and you will be able to tell a part of history that you lived through. So thank you, and thank you to all our teachers and our staff. I know this has been trying times for you. Teachers, we know how hard it is when you go and you have to teach virtual. I want to thank you for all that you do. Yeah, thank you for all that you do, and our staff, thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President. Hello, everyone. Hope you all have had a happy and safe Thanksgiving break. And also thank you to everyone who writes to us and emails us. Your voice is important, and we want to make sure that you are part of that. I also want to congratulate all of our student athletes, especially the ones who have signed some commitments to their collegiate groups and local community colleges and others. So congratulations for everyone who signed on signing day. We're excited to see you on your journey. Also, on the topic of sports as well, thank you to Dan Hines for his service and commitment to Desert Vista and the Desert Vista football team. As many of you have seen, yeah, he's retiring from coaching the football team, but he's not going to staying with us. But I just want to take a moment to thank him for his service and also his contributions to not only Desert Vista, the football team, but also the district. And also, we'll finish with gift and donations. So a quick thank you to Southwest Human Development for their donation to Compadre, Natalie Cookwood for their donation to Mountain Point, Dignity Health for their contributions of 72 Stop to Bleed kits, Glenn and Ann Brookman to Marcos Deniza, and Ruth Hoshau to Marcos Deniza. Thank you all so much for your continued support. And that is all I have, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Vice President Garcia. Adding on to what you just said, we also want to thank Gino Crump, who just resigned today. He has another position. He was our Desert Vista varsity basketball coach who went to the championship. So congratulations, Gino. We will miss you. You've been a great part of the Desert Vista family. So, and now we go on to Board Member Barraza.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, executive team, Dr. Mandeville. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to be brief. I just want to thank all the input we've received from the community, from the teachers, staff, and I think it's really important during this time that we get that input to be able to calibrate what we need to achieve to make sure that students are successful. I really appreciate the students taking the time and the effort to be able to write to us. That means a lot personally, because they're the ones that are living the campuses. They're the ones that are really going through a lot of heartbreak right now. This is something that's, is pivotal in their time of lives. And I really think we need to understand that, a little bit more. But in the end, it's all about working together. So I appreciate the input from the community regarding that. I attended Marcos Deniza's 50th. Well, I don't know if we mentioned this. I mean, I can't remember where we left off with the last board meeting, but Marcos Deniza, I attended Marcos Deniza, and so did my son. He graduated in 2018, and I attended the football game where we honored our principals, and it was amazing to be able to talk to the principals from past and present. Sean McDonald, our really who's running a lot of what we're doing in terms of our projects and trying to get in terms of contact tracing. He was a principal at Marcos Deniza, and I met Vic Sanchez, who I was a freshman in 1998. He just left the year prior. I'm sorry, can everyone hear me? I had an issue with my headset. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay, so Vic Sanchez left a very deep culture of leadership and community at Marcos Deniza, and I was very honored to be able to speak with him at that game and to be able to pick his brain. Frank Maurizio, he was my principal during that time, and he built the whole business aspect of Marcos Deniza, the whole academy, business academy. That was a focus of his. I was able to speak with him and be able to talk to him about where we should be going, where he thinks, like that academy, that whole aspect should be going. It was really, really a great experience to be able to talk to our leadership. They really left an imprint in me personally and in our community, so for me, it was exciting, but also very emotional to be back at our football field and to see our football team play, the parents in the stands cheering. We didn't get obviously the population that we would like, because of the COVID situation. But I think it meant a lot to everyone, and I was proud to be there. On that note, too, one thing that I did notice is that everyone in attendance at those games gets a little goodie bag. And it's filled with real healthy snacks, bottled water. So everyone has something when they go to attend. And I would just like to say that I really like that the district takes that aspect to our games and our activities to be able to put those little bags together for the families. It's not a big deal. It just shows that we care, so I don't know. I'm having issues with my Bluetooth earpiece, so I hope you guys can really hear me. But I'm just very thankful and very proud of our district. And I really just would like to continue moving forward with the models we have and the input from our staff and our community, and be able to adjust what we need to be able to make sure that we're successful. There's a lot of students that are dealing with a lot right now, and a lot of staff members that are just overwhelmed, and they're dealing with personal responsibilities at the same time. So I think we really just need to hold on together as a community. And, I'm thankful for those little aspects again. That's all I have.
Thank you, Board Member Barraza. I'll say for Vice President Garcia, we were all I think Vice President Garcia was there also with me and Mrs. Lau. So we did all, and Mrs. Helm, it was Mrs. Helm. I'm sorry, it was you, that we were all at the game. So we all enjoyed it. So thank you so much for that, to bringing that back to our attention. Now I'll go to Board Member Helm.
Thank you, Madam President. I too want to wish everyone, I hope, had a good Thanksgiving and a safe one. I was just looking, it popped up on my phone as I was listening to Mr. Barraza that US reports the highest number of COVID deaths in one day, and that was today. So with that thought in mind, I hope that everyone will keep others safe in this up and coming holiday season by wearing your mask and social distancing yourself from others. You could be the one who really makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Helm. Now I have Board Member Lau.
Thank you. So the only thing I want to say tonight is it's some exciting news. Our strategic goal 2 is the one about maximizing our resources for our students, and Diane Yeomans is a facilitator. And we are going to have a drive. It's called Tempe Union Gives Back this holiday season. And we are going to be supporting McKinney-Vento students as well as Threads. And you will all hear information about this in the next few days. We are going to be reaching out to our staff and our students, our families, and our community. And we will be collecting gift cards for the Angel Tree, along with hygiene products for our Threads stores. So exciting to give back to some of the agencies, because we really are lucky, because there's so many nonprofits and businesses that provide us with services and things for our students. And this is a way that we as a Tempe Union community can also give back. So, and that is going to be on December 12th. We are going to have two places to collect these goods. One will be at Mountain Point, and one will be at our district office. And you'll get the details in the next few days. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Lau. I guess I want to let you guys all know that Board Member Lau, she's a great reindeer, because we were actually reindeers on Saturday when we delivered Thanksgiving turkeys and stuff to everyone. So we were actually dancing, and we had a great time at Tempe High School. So thank you so much for Tempe High School for inviting us, and also for Lillian Gomez for putting it together. That ends our board communications. Dr. Mendeville, does anyone from your executive team have any communications?
From the looks of it, I don't think so.
Okay, our first order of business is our consent agenda. I move to approve consent agenda G1 through G7. May I have a second?
Madam President, I second.
Thank you so much, Vice President Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next, we come to our business services. First, we have a public hearing revision for number 1 of the 2020-2021 expenditure budget. Dr. Menville, is there any public comment?
We do not have any public comment on that board agenda item, Madam President.
Thank you so much. Okay, then we will move to the revision of the number 1 of 2020-2021 expenditure budget. We'll have Roland go over the changes before we ask any questions.
So I want to just introduce, and we're very proud of our Roland Carranza, and with Diane Mumans. Roland's position in the district as a director of budget and finance, and we're so very proud of the work that he does. So Roland, take it away.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm here. Give me a second. Okay. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Mendeville, and community members. What we have here is the revision number 1 to our current year budget, the 2021. And our revision is required given that our budget limit and our M&O has changed and our unrestricted capital. And so what I have in this summary is just the main items that were generating a change. And the comparison is to the adopted budget that was made in July. And right now we have some adjustments that are typically made at this time of year where we're reconciling with ADE for the previous year and for real-time ADM for funding for ADM for the current year. And for the M&O, we have our budget reconciliation to the Budget 75 report. That's $30,000. The big change is we estimate in July what our carryover is going to be in M&O. When we close the books in October, that figure is different based on what actually happened all the way through October when we complete when we close the books. And so we picked up about 2.7 million in additional carryover. And then there's a slight adjustment for Prop 123, 50 million add-on for the current year. And then there's a reduction from our ADM for the current year through October 23rd. And that's a drop of about 2.7. All in all, the changes to M&O, there's some big changes, but the net is only a $58,000, and that is actually an increase of $58,000, $689. And so we will continue to revise our budget when we get through the end of the school year in May, but that's where our reconciliation is for our M&O. On the capital side, kind of the same thing. We're taking a look at information from ADE and our carryover on the capital side for last year. And we had a carryover of about just under $1.8 million. And we picked up a little bit in interest earnings, about $40,000. And then our current year district additional assistance is revised down by $160,000. So the net change is an increase of $1,657,000. So that's kind of like the big picture, and it's adjustments that we do at this time of year. And there's not anything that we weren't expecting here, but we're just required to make these revisions at this time. We did put the notice of public hearing and the summary of the changes and posted it to AD as required 10 days before our meeting tonight. But I'll open it. There's other documents, but again, this is the summary of what's in those documents, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you so much, Roland. Does any of the board members have any questions? You can just call out because I can't actually see you right now.
Hello,
Okay,
Roland.
looks like Mrs. Helm does. She raised her hand first.
Brian had raised his hand.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Vice President Garcia can go first, and then Mrs. Helm is afterwards.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to thank you, Roland, for everything you do, and also Diane Yeomans. As many know, I have the great privilege of working with Roland every week, and I get to see his work up front on a regular basis. So I just, wanted to take the opportunity to thank you in public and recognize your contributions and your service to the district and to our students, and also for Diane Yeomans as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Vice President Garcia. Board Member Helm.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Carranza, rather a general question, not specifics, as I sit here and look at all of the data that we have here. I'm wondering where our COVID expenditures have fallen into our future budget or our budget changes that you have tonight. Are they in any specific area? I do not necessarily see them named by COVID, so I was just wondering where those are.
Yeah, the biggest areas for COVID expenditures were in technology, preparation of staff and professional development, the purchase of laptops for students, software and equipment for teachers to do the virtual teaching. So we have received some funds from federal dollars from ESSER, CARES money, and we're in the process of using the recent award for the ESG, the Enrollment Stabilization Grant. And so it's a combination of some M&O recovery and some capital recovery. So those aren't specifically required to be spelled out here, but we're in the process. We have reclassified some expenditures towards those federal dollars, and we're in the process of reclassifying some additional recent awards.
Dr. Mendeville?
Yes.
I think it would be very helpful to our community and certainly to the board members that maybe in January we have a breakdown of all our COVID expenses so our community can see, one, where the money's coming from, two, how we are spending it to help our students and our staff.
Thank you, Madam Board Member Helm and Madam President. Yes, that's a great idea. I think by then, Roland, we should have some of the reclassification and those awards reconciled at that point, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So we would be able to do a formal report for the board in January. I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Board Member Helm.
Thank you, Board Member Helm. Is there any other questions? Okay, it looks like I see no other questions. So I will, if there's no other questions, I move to approve the revision of number 1 of the 2020-2021 expenditure budget. May I have a second?
Madam President, I second.
Thank you so much, Vice President Garcia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes 5-0. Remember, we all need to sign the cover page. Roland will be in touch with you to make arrangements to get your signature. Next, we have our COVID update. This is for information and discussion only. Dr. Mendeville, is there any public comments?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board and listening public, we do have public comment on this particular item. Dr. Wilson will provide us the reading of the public comment. Dr. Wilson.
Yes, thank you. Public comment concerning agenda item I, COVID update, will be read at this time. Submissions for public comment must include the person's full name and their organization or affiliation to the district, such as parent or community member. Anonymous submissions and submissions containing personal attacks upon board members or staff are deleted. 21 emails were received from 1 p.m. Monday until 3 p.m. today. Therefore, we will follow Section C of Governing Board Policy BEDH, Public Participation at Governing Board Meetings, which states that when there are 16 to 30 speakers, public comment is limited to 2 minutes. All submissions, no matter the length, have been provided in their entirety to the board. First public comment is from Amy Jameson, parent. As you know, Fauci recommended opening schools over 2 months ago. He continues to state schools should be open. I find it sad we are closing our high schools because teachers cannot find childcare. When Red for Ed took the time off to strike, it left many families scrambling for last-minute childcare and in deep financial strain. The teachers and admin shouted at us, "School is not daycare." We are quite aware it is not daycare, but a sudden cessation of a child's typical and normal daytime activity caused panic and financial hardship. As a community and parents, we rolled with it and supported our teachers and consoled our children who felt abandoned. Now suddenly, we are supposed to be the ones understanding why teachers cannot use school as daycare and they cannot come to work. The high schools have even invited teachers to bring their children to work so they may teach on campus. Are they doing it? Very few. Instead, they have chosen to walk away from their jobs and head home, leaving many children with on-site services abandoned yet again. We have been dealing with this since March of 2020. We have had no choice but to find alternatives. Work nights to teach our children during the day. Find childcare to watch or help our children learn while we are at work. Or worse yet, lost our jobs and had to try to keep our heads above water, our morale up for our children, all while dealing with depressed and anxious children who have had their education, vocation, and college plans snatched right out from under them. Our schools have been closed since March. Little was known about the virus in March. The governor took away prom, senior activities, graduation, and many more things with his and your decision to close the schools. We went with it because we had no choice.
Station.
Got it. Next public comment is from Tanya Drew, a parent. This is for the agenda item of our children and their education and allowing them back in school in person with teachers and peers. Teachers are suffering at the hands of our district closing. Teenagers are suffering at the hands of our district closing. Their education and their emotional health is not being considered. We need to quit closing our schools as we are the only districts in the East Valley to keep our kids out, then open for a month and close again. This is not helping my child's education. C's and D's should not be acceptable by any teacher or educator or parent. It shows my child not only isn't doing the work he needs to do, but that he also isn't getting the learning from what is being taught. While my child is partly responsible for his education, it is also hard for him to pay attention all day online and to have the supervision he needs to be successful as he is still a teenager. We need our schools open for more than the educational success, but also for the emotional health of our children. There are other things to be looked at other than the COVID numbers. Give our students who need in-person learning a chance. Tanya Drew, longtime parent of Marcos Deniza students. The next public comment is from Lori Sherman, a Mountain Point parent. TUHSD Governing Board, thank you all for your work for our students. I am a parent of a Mountain Point student. With the return to online learning, I am interested in the results of the first quarter online for students. Has the Governing Board analyzed the data regarding absences, pass-fail rates, comparative results to last year? on district testing and coverage of learning objectives for each course? If so, can this information be presented to the public in a future board meeting? If there are significant gaps, what are the mitigation plans the district has in place if online learning continues for the remainder of Q2? Where gaps in learning exist, how will those be closed? I wish TUHSD had implemented the plan adopted by other East Valley districts by closing only individual schools when their infection rates were high. I understand the concept of being a family, but with the way different geographical areas ebb and flow with COVID-19, I am concerned under this model, all students are falling behind if there are differences in student achievement between remote learning and classroom learning. Based on my personal experience over the approximate 17 weeks of remote learning since last March, I do not believe the student learning is equivalent. Data from the district level would be very helpful for the community to assess the results. Thank you for your consideration. The next public comment is from Deborah Bigham. TUHSD board members, thank you for your time and consideration. As a mother of a daughter who is a junior at Corona High School and 3 children at Kyrene School District, I feel it is important to let you know my opinion of virtual learning. As I type this email, we are on day 2 of dealing with Cox and our internet service. Day 2 of no learning. I have kids that range from grade 1 to a junior in high school. This is a travesty to my children and it angers me. I am not an angry person. There is no evidence that COVID is killing children or that COVID deaths are related to schools. Please stop your agenda and focus on the children. They need to be in school. My husband and I are both in healthcare, and there is no one in that industry that is begging schools to shut down. The public education in Arizona is failing our children, and you are at the helm. You can make the difference. You can decide to let those who are not privileged to receive proper education by opening the schools. Teacher must stop whining and start working. It is what every other American is doing, working. These private schools are staying open, so the privileged are continuing to move ahead. And it is not because they are privileged, but because you, yes, you continue to suppress our children. I will remember what the board decides to do, and if the board continues to make decisions that suppress our children, then I will use my privileged voice to make sure that not one single one of you get reelected. I will not allow you all to continue to suppress my children and the children in our community. Thank you for your time and thank you for your willingness to serve our children in our community because they are our future. Deborah Bigham. Our next public comment is from Amy Beeman. Instead of me, Amy Beeman, parent of a freshman, pleading once again for an option for kids that are suffering with the online format, I turn to science. You cannot proclaim to follow science, but ignore the science that doesn't suit you or your agenda. The Center of Disease Control and American Pediatrics Association have both come out and proclaimed that the best and safest place for kids is at school. Further, they have stated that spread of COVID to adults like teachers and staff is not present. Even Fauci has come out in support of kids being in school. Please read aloud my attachment at this time that came directly from Fauci. Fauci, close the bars and keep the schools open. If you look at the data, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the United States top infectious disease expert, said Sunday the spread of COVID among children and from children is not really very big at all. Not like one would have suspected. That's why he supports trying to keep kids in school. He told ABC News' Martha Raddatz. Instead of shuttering classrooms, Fauci said the best way to keep children safe from contracting or spreading the coronavirus is to curb the community spread. So while there's no one-size-fits-all approach, he suggested bars and restaurants with indoor dining rather than schools are places where the virus That concludes that public comment. The next public comment is Megan Mortensen. Hello, I am a student at Corona del Sol. I appreciate and thank you for all you are doing to keep us safe and continuing to learn. Though I will say online schooling makes it really hard to learn and stay focused. I'm not someone who is on social media all the time or who every time I get a notification checks my phone, but I do have siblings who are loud and teachers have issues with technology along with students. I'm someone who works really hard academically and I feel like I am missing the social aspect of school. It is hard to make connections with teachers and to get to know kids during online school, even though they do breakout rooms where kids turn their cameras and don't say a single word. I love in-person school. I love getting to talk to people and being able to focus. And I feel like I can actually ask questions and I don't have to worry about if I'm muted all the time. With all the precautions the school is taking, I feel safe and ready to learn. Thank you for all you are doing to help us continue to learn even during this time. I hope you all can see the need some students have to be in person and can find a way for us to come back. Best regards, Megan Mortensen. Our next public comment is from Danielle Paulette. Good evening, Dr. Mendeville, President Hodge, and board members. I'm the mom of a senior with an IEP in need of SPED services and a freshman, both attending Mountain Point. I wanted to thank you for delaying the in-person start of the school year. I wanted to thank you for remaining on a hybrid schedule since October. I wanted to thank you for making the tough decision to return to virtual learning after the Thanksgiving weekend. My senior is managing his classes, services, and assignments with help from me, his teachers, and his counselors, and specialized therapists. His grades during the first quarter were higher than they've ever expected. My freshman had realistic expectations of what his first year of high school would look like during a pandemic. He has really enjoyed getting to know his teachers and is loving Mountain Point despite the challenges. He is also thriving, getting all A's and responsibly managing his own education. My sons from Mountain Point have 2 siblings who attend school at Pueblo Middle School. I am thankful that Kyrene and Tempe Union do everything they can to coordinate these types of decisions for our community. Both districts make my job a little easier when you work together. We care very deeply about our educators, school staff, and administrators, and we are grateful that Tempe Union makes the health and safety of everyone in their care a top priority. The next public comment is Alice Bigham. Hello, my name is Alice Bigham and I am a junior at Corona. Online is very difficult for me. I don't learn as much and it shows in my grades. It is also hard because I have a big family with lots of kids who can be very distracting. I care very much about school. Attending in person so that I can get the proper help and education I need is very important to me. I am applying to colleges very soon. Every decision made directly impacts me in my future. Thanks, Alice Bigham. The next public comment is from Monica Gelman. President Hodge, esteemed board members, and Dr. Mendeville, I am a parent of 2 daughters at Desert Vista. Please accept my support and gratitude for making the difficult decision to return to virtual learning. As always, you followed the science and put the health of students and staff at the forefront of your decision. For what it's worth, I think the mitigation strategies employed by the district were sound and were enforced well. Small class sizes on campus were an added bonus. Unfortunately, too many in our community did not take adequate precautions, and COVID-19 numbers sharply increased in our area over the last 4 to 6 weeks. I truly wish everyone had prioritized school and work and made the choice to skip out on youth sports and activities, parties, travel, dining out, etc. This was avoidable, but the governing board cannot control bars, restaurants, gyms, or the behavior of students and their families while off campus. You did the only thing that was within your control, and I appreciate it. Monica Gelman. The next public comment is from Jill Osborne, Tempe High Orchestra Director. I would like to thank the TUHSD school board members for keeping students and staff as safe as possible in these difficult circumstances. I appreciate the thoughtful responses to COVID. I believe we should be virtual as long as the medical and science experts are providing evidence that a shutdown is the intelligent response. I do know the difficulties presented to our students for online education. We can provide a quality education regardless of the platform. Most importantly, we need to stay healthy and alive. I promise to do my part and make my lessons engaging and productive. Thank you for protecting all of us. Next public comment is from Anna Erskine. To whom this may concern, my name is Anna Erskine, and I am currently a junior at Corona del Sol High School. I have recently been told by my mom that there is a possibility that school will be online through March. To be honest, this absolutely terrifies me. I feel like I am a good student with good study habits. There is one particular class, exercise physiology, that I struggle in. I am a visual learner, and online school is not working well for me. I know that I am not the only student with this issue. I do understand the teachers are doing their best under the circumstances. However, it is not working and is not at all efficient. Being a junior, this is a crucial year because of the usual preparation for the pre-SAT and pre-ACT. I am unfortunately missing out on these prep exams. I am worried about this. I will be applying to colleges on a one-time test that previously students had been able to take multiple times and had many practice opportunities that I do not get. I feel cheated and robbed. I feel that TUHSD is doing their students a disfavor by closing the option for in-school classes. To say that I am mad, angry, and disappointed would be an understatement. My friends in Chandler, Gilbert, and Mesa have been in class full-time since September, and I find it extremely unfair. Why am I not in person when these students who are my age have been learning normally for 2 months now? My parents and I have been seriously talking about changing schools and districts so that I can have active learning inside a classroom. My education is in your hands. The choices that are being made personally affect me and not you. Sincerely, a student. The next public comment is from Jennifer Bart, an English teacher at Corona. As a teacher at Corona del Sol, I want to thank you for returning our schools to virtual instruction. While I recognize the disadvantages of virtual learning, being on campus was becoming more and more stressful due to the number of staff and students who tested positive for the virus. While the district dashboard reflected low numbers and those cases weren't spread in classrooms, our reality as teachers was a lot different from the district website. Those of us working with students every day knew that kids were coming to school knowing they were positive. They were not informing the school of their diagnosis. And while they were spreading COVID in the classrooms, they were spreading it in sports and extracurricular activities. In addition to COVID concerns, there are not enough subs for all of the teacher absences, which puts additional stress on teachers and puts students at even more of a disadvantage. I was out sick for 3 days 2 weeks ago, and for 2 of those days, I had no sub. The sub situation is only going to get worse as COVID numbers increase. Now that we are virtual, I can focus 100% of my attention to my Zoom meetings rather than trying to divide my attention between virtual and hybrid students. I can once again use breakout rooms for one-on-one tutoring or assignment help, which greatly benefits students. And my stress level is much lower, both because I know I'm not going to be exposed to COVID and because I can give my students more attention. This situation we are in isn't going to last forever. I look forward to the day in the near future when we can return to campus full time so I can return to teaching the teaching I do best. Thank you for your time, Jennifer Bart. The next public comment is from Amanda Steele, a parent of a Mountain Point student. Dear board members and Superintendent Mendeville, as a parent in this district whose student is missing out on in-person instruction his final semester at Mountain Point, and will likely get minimal to no community opportunity when he attends Success University in the spring and possibly into his final year of school, I strongly urge Forest School to remain virtual. There are far too many factors to take into place. The most important is the health and well-being of the staff, teachers, students, and families. Hospital capacity nearing full and no sign of regressing after the recent holiday led to many families not following recommended guidelines. Until the community respects and accepts that this virus is here, school will continue to be impacted for the foreseeable future. We have to be a responsible community before placing the risk and responsibilities on the teachers, students, and families that could be impacted. It is flu season. It is holiday time. It is where families are going to continue to not follow guidelines. It is in the best interest to remain virtual until the community spread is substantially lowered and the hospital capacity is not close to a possible disaster. Thank you, Amanda Steele. Next public comment is from Cameron Royalty, a sophomore at Marcos Deniza. Good evening, Tempe Union board members and Superintendent Mendeville. My name is Cameron Royalty and I am a sophomore at Marcos Deniza. I am extremely disappointed that I am not able to attend school in person. Although I believe my teachers are doing the best they can in the situation, we need and want more. I do not believe that the risk of contracting COVID-19 and suffering death or serious complications is high for me or most school-age kids. However, the quality of my education is being impacted tremendously, which could really put me behind where I want to be. Just one example is that because we were shut down fourth quarter last school year, I am struggling in honors calculus, not because I don't understand the calculus, but because I am struggling with the algebra that I missed out on during the fourth quarter. It is also much easier to learn math in person where a teacher can see what you are doing and correct your mistakes. I was not able to take several of the classes I had planned this year. I was told it was because the teachers had to be pulled away from in-person teaching to teach online classes. I understand that there are teachers that are at higher risk of contracting and suffering from the virus than we kids are. But if teachers have the option to teach online and many teachers want to teach in person, why can't we have an in-person and online option? That way everyone can get what they want. Online school is just not working. Yes, I know help is on the way with the vaccine, but we still don't know how long it will take to get everyone the vaccine. We cannot go another semester or quarter with online school. Too much is at stake. With proper caution and mitigation strategies, I know we can be safe at school. Please let us back in the classroom. Cameron Royalty. Next public comment is from Brian Hawkins. I'm an engineering teacher in the district, and it has been extremely difficult to plan when we get information at the last minute. When we switched back to virtual and then we only had a short week with students attending one day, many students were absent, and I honestly don't blame them. It would have been nice if we would have had an additional week to get materials to students instead of emailing and coordinating pickup times during virtual learning. If we plan on being virtual next semester, it would be nice to know by the end of this semester so we can plan and purchase supplies. It would also be helpful to have that first week back for students to pick up supplies so specific classes so they could actually do hands-on work instead of staring at a screen all day. Brian Hawkins. Next public comment is from Ruth Lindsay. Dr. Mendeville, President Hodge, and governing board members, I am writing today to thank you for making the decision to go virtual during this unprecedented time. As a graduate of Tempe High and mom to a future Marcos student, this choice to follow science and act with the common good in mind gives me confidence in the district. I have seen teachers work magic online, but I'm aware that this magic only happens because they are devoting hours to learning new methods and new technology. I have watched as my own daughter's teacher tried to teach her in-person students and remote learners at the same time, an impossible task, but she tried to make it meaningful for everyone. When we talk about reopening in the second semester, please ensure you are thinking of what our educators need in order to be successful. We have a plan for the most vulnerable educators so they do not feel forced to resign. We have already lost too many educators who haven't felt safe in their districts. I am confident that Tempe Union will make the right decisions based in science and will keep students and educators' needs centered. Sincerely, Ruth Lindsay. Next public comment is from Don Westing. Dear board members, ignored. That will be a theme here. Please respect our comments with at minimum, the decency of a response. Other than responses from Mrs. Lau and Ms. Helm, board members generally don't respond. In fact, some members even state in writing a particular day they will call you and don't, and then repeatedly ignore calls, emails, and texts. You have stated you would follow the guidelines and metrics. CDC states school is the safest place for children. Dr. Fauci recommends the same. Arizona Department of Health Services recommends 3 metrics be in the red for 2 weeks before switching to virtual. These are guidelines and metrics you have ignored, just like you have ignored the students and any stakeholder that wants school. When you returned the district to virtual on 11/30, despite all the guidance and recommendations, what was your reasoning to return to virtual? As of now, our district still shows only 1 metric in red for 2 weeks. Ms. Lau tried to ask last time what metrics you were following. You wouldn't answer her. You ignored her question. Please watch the Chandler District recent meeting. We are all looking at the same data, metrics, guidelines. Both districts have put in mitigation strategies that are working, and cases are low, and the spread is not occurring in school. Chandler stated that case percent were same for those in school as those still doing virtual. Both districts are being effective on that side. However, Chandler is choosing to use that data, make good decisions, provide clear guidelines, and put students first. They seem to understand the benefits of school and need overwhelming evidence to close. Next public comment is from Lori Bastian, a Corona parent. Dear Governing Board and Superintendent Mendeville, this Monday, November 30th, Tempe Union continued with its mission to close schools to students, further relegating them to an online learning abyss. You have repeatedly said you will follow the science. Within the last week, both Dr. Robert Redfield of the CDC and Dr. Anthony Fauci of the NIAID stated that the best place for students is in school. You said you would follow county metrics, but you closed campuses even though the county guidelines have been adjusted. Parents are begging you to give students and teachers the choice of in-person learning or online. Other districts have figured it out and are trying their best to educate students by keeping the doors open. Every other industry and segment of society is implementing mitigation measures to carry on. How are kids not work the effort and creativity to figure this out? I am utterly disgusted that selfish adults are disregarding the needs of our children. Our schools are here to serve kids, not adults. How can you tell parents you put students first when vulnerable children are suffering? To put students first, Tempe Union should allow children to choose either in-person or online learning. Teachers should also choose between the two, as teaching both online and in-person students at the same time was a failure. If teachers are at high risk, they should be allowed to teach online. Otherwise, they should teach students who choose it in person 5 days a week. I urge the district to survey parents to understand what your community wants, the community you work for. Find out how many students would return to campus if they could be there 5 days a week with teachers only teaching the students in the classroom. Find out how many teachers would teach in person only and how many would teach online only. Right now, you have no idea what your community wants because you haven't asked, and you certainly haven't been listening when we tell you. The next public comment is from Rodrigo Palacios, TSEA Vice President, Tempe High teacher. President Hodge, members of the board, Superintendent Mendeville, I want to be brief and thank you all for making a very difficult decision 2 weeks ago by returning to distance learning. I know this was a difficult decision, and I can only imagine the pressures you are feeling, but you did the right thing in following the science and metrics presented by county and state health entities. It is important that we continue to monitor those health metrics and that we are cautious and proactive in how we navigate this pandemic. I know it is difficult for parents. As a parent of a kindergartner, second grader, and third grader, I find myself doing quadruple duty as teacher all the time. Nonetheless, I am thankful that my children and my students are being kept safe by the district they attend and the district I serve. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for doing the right thing. Our next public comment is from Ismail Asuna. Board President Hodge, members of the board, and Superintendent Mendeville. My name is Ismail Osuna, a community member from the town of Guadalupe. I want to thank you for putting our kids first. Your decision to close our schools and to go virtual is the best decision for the safety and well-being of our kids, teachers, and staff. We are in the midst of a pandemic, and COVID-19 cases are on the rise in our state and in our communities. We are living in uncertain times. We must take all necessary measures and precautions to ensure the safety and wellness of all our students and teachers. I hope you continue to keep the best interests of students and teachers at heart. Keep our schools safe and healthy. And our final public comment is from Courtney Antonson Milanovic, CDS parent and THS teacher. Dear board members, with the COVID-19 numbers being what they are, Dr. Mendeville made the prudent and safe choice to start virtual learning again as of this week. For that, I thank him. Most of my students who had the option to attend in hybrid were not actually attending in person prior to our closure because they knew it wasn't safe and said so. The same is true for many of the children of our friends and community members around the district who had chosen the hybrid option. We should not reopen until it is safe. The metric changes made quietly without the knowledge or support of Kathy Hoffman and/or ADE were clearly problematic, and I am so glad Dr. Mendeville saw through that. If those metrics had actually been effective, we would not have to be closed now. Being asked to return on January 4th, 2021, right after people celebrate the new year, will continue to put students, teachers, and staff at risk. We are all excited about 2020 coming to a close, but we need to start the new year off on a safe, focused trajectory. We need to remain closed and focus on virtual teaching, learning until it is safe for everyone to return in person. Vaccines are on the way, but will not be available to normal folk until April at the earliest. Focusing on virtual teaching, learning allows consistency and safety. We have to stop moving the goalposts so we can all settle in and push toward the goal. Thank you for your time and attention. That concludes public comment.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. We can now move to the next item, and that is the COVID update by our Mr. McDonald. So you have a presentation to make. Mr. McDonald, take it away.
Just going to present my screen. Good evening, Madam President. I won't be able to see you, so if we could wait for questions, I'll only be able to show you what I'm looking at, which is the PowerPoint at this time. But I'll be happy to answer any questions as we continue. Again, thank you, Dr. Mendeville. Good evening, Madam President, Vice President Garcia, governing board members, Dr. Mendeville, executive team, and listening community. I believe it's important to give a brief metric update again this week and kind of answer any questions that we may see as we continue. As we work and look at the Maricopa County metrics, we'll notice as of last Thursday, again, remember that the Arizona Department of Health Services is about 2 weeks and 3 days behind whereas the Maricopa County is about 2 weeks behind. That lag time is for those numbers to catch up and then to be able to give accurate data. Typically, when we look at the data real time, it's actually less than these numbers. And see, these numbers grow after they continue over the 2-week period. So as of November 8th, you'll notice that benchmark 1A continues to be on the rise from 215 to 265, again being in the 4th consecutive week. Benchmark 2 also reached a substantial range, being in 10% or higher, greater than 10% at 11%. And then benchmark 3 still went up to the moderate level. It's about 5.6%. And as we move into the metrics for Tempe Union High School District, I wanted to kind of go through what that shows. Again, it is a metric on Maricopa County, and it includes your 4 main zip codes, which is 85281, 85282, 283, and 284. And we have reached the 3rd consecutive weeks for cases per 100,000. We are at 8.48% in percent positivity, and COVID-like illnesses, that has to do with our hospitals, 6.2%. I think when we look at these metrics and we look at all the zip codes, we're above 7% in percent positivity, which was the original or initial substantial benchmark. Currently it's at 10. But when we also look at the real-time data, we know that these numbers tomorrow, you'll be at the 4th consecutive week in cases per 100,000, and you'll reach the first week of greater than 10% positivity. When we look at it 2 weeks ahead, of course, you're well ahead of that, and both benchmark 1 and benchmark 2 in real time is in the substantial range. So I'm just going to briefly look at the schools and how we get to the schools is that the state has allowed us to average our school zip codes. And that has to do with being an open enrollment district, that not just in our feeder locations or our immediate feeder areas, but also we have many zip codes. In fact, we gather over tens, almost 100 zip codes. However, we use substantially 19 zip codes throughout our school sites. Working with the state and Dr. Alexic, we are able to average these. And what we wanted to do is make sure that we had data that is statistically significant. And what we did with that is we took our N number, or I should say sample size of 40. And in data, anywhere between 20 and 40 sample size or N number of that is significantly statistical significant. And we wanted to make sure that we picked 40, the high end of that, not only for it to be significant, but also it has very little fluctuation in the data. And so when we look at these metrics, in Tempe High's case, we looked at 6 different zip codes that had 40 students or more in those areas. And you'll notice that in benchmark 1, cases per 100,000, we're in the 3rd consecutive week. And with that, we're also in the first week of benchmark number 2, 12.84%. But if you looked at the percent positivity November 19th, that's at 9.8%. Again, much higher than the 7% that was originally stated by the state. When we look at McClintock, very similar. We get the data from 7 different zip codes there. Again, percent positivity is at 11.85%. Tomorrow, we believe that will be in the 2nd consecutive week of substantial, and the 4th consecutive week at cases per 100,000, being at 264 presently. If we look at Marcos Deniza, they do a pretty good job keeping kids coming in from their feeder areas. We look at 282, 283, and 042 is one of the outside areas. Once again, averaging those, we get 237.1 0.11 cases per 100,000, being at the third consecutive week, and the first week, of percent positivity above 10%. And just like Tempe and McClintock, we believe that you'll see, again, two benchmarks being in the substantial area. When we look at Corona gathers from 8 different zip codes. Averaging those out, we have 250.73 cases per 100,000. Percent positivity is at 10.96%. Again, we believe that those will be, starting tomorrow, the third consecutive week at cases per 100,000 for benchmark 1. And we believe the second week of percent positivity, with all the increases of the COVID-like illnesses at the hospitals. And then our metrics at Mountain Point. Mountain Point has seen now 3 consecutive weeks. We get their data from 10 different zip codes of 40 or more. Cases per 100,000 at the 235.71. They have reached their first week of substantial percent positivity at 12.02. When we look at Desert Vista has reached its second consecutive week at cases per 100,000. We gather their data from 4 different zipper codes. When you look at their percent positivity, they're at 7.71. Again, for the last 2 weeks, above the 7% threshold, that was the origination of that percent positivity number. Again, when we look tomorrow, we believe that will be at the third week of cases per 100,000, and prediction is that they'll be at the first week for percent positivity. And then Compadre, very interesting, that really their only school, about 250 students at the school currently. The only zip code is 85283, bigger than 40. Currently at 206.83 cases per 100,000, percent positivity is at 9.14. If we were to look a little bit deeper and change the N number to, say, 20, that would include zip codes of 85281, 282, which are just booming right now, and also 85226. So this could be very well that their percent positivity of adding a few more zip codes with a lower N number or sample size, we would see that percent positivity being at 10%. I'm going to stop sharing and be able to answer some questions at this time.
Okay, it looks like Board Member Lau has some questions.
Okay, ready to go here. Thank you. So today I spent some time, board members, I spent some time looking at Sean's presentation. And if you remember 2 weeks ago, it was shared with us that in the next couple weeks, we would meet the 2 criteria, 2 red for 2 weeks in a row. And today we're hearing that by tomorrow, we should do that. So I looked at our zip codes today. There are 18 zip codes that we're looking at divided by our 7 schools. Only 6 of these zip codes meet the criteria of being in red for 2 weeks in a row for positivity and cases. And of those 6, 1 is in Laveen, 1 goes out to Dobson to Mesa Road, 1 goes to Alma School to Gilbert Road. The other 3 are spread among 4 of our schools. Now, I know you talked about averaging if there's 20 to 40 students, but I believe statistically you should be weighting these students that are in these, not in our district, but surrounding, because they shouldn't count in each of our schools equally. I feel I'm at a huge disadvantage as a board member because we are being thanked by many tonight for following science, following metrics, following the medical community. Yet we have not met this. And we decided to close our schools almost 2 weeks ago. I know we all believe that our students should be in school, but I also believe that we need to be transparent and provide supportive information to our community why we're making decisions. Tonight, for the first time, and I sent this information to Mr. McDonald and Dr. Mendenville today, tonight, for the first time, I'm hearing that we are using also live data from ASU research. Well, that may be true, but we made the decision 2 weeks ago, and where is that ASU? I would, as a board member, if you have that and you think that proves that we are meeting the conditions of the county, I feel like we should have been shown that. I am disillusioned. I am not against going to virtual. And if there's other reasons for it, as in needing more subs or whatever, then we need to be very clear to our community and explain that. But right now, I can't, these wonderful people that wrote and thanked us for following science and metrics, I haven't seen it. And I spent about 2.5 hours today looking at all these individual zip codes. And in fact, when you look at Compadre, there's no, they should be open. When you look at DV, they should be open. They have no zip codes that fall into the 2-week category of meeting red. Corona, all the zip codes are fine. They don't meet the 2 weeks in red, except for the ones that are out in Alma School to Gilbert Road, and the one that is out to Gilbert Road. So I want to support our decisions, and I've been looking very hard at reasons why we're doing it. And I don't think it's been presented to the board, our board at all, and especially our community.
Dr.
Mr.
Mendenville, Mr. McDonald, Dr. Mendenville, you want to respond?
Mr. McDonald, do you want to share a little bit more about some of those zip codes that Board Member Lau was talking about? Because I think there's, if people are thinking we're taking a 20, 30, or 40 sample, there's 40 or more. What does or more mean like with some of those zip codes with Levine?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. We do look at this data very carefully. So I look at each of the zip codes. And to give you an example, let's say we look at Tempe High and we look at the 85040, as in Phoenix, or the 85042. Those two zip codes have 399 students and 341 students in those areas. So that's 800 students. And that is half of their population in a very high risk area. If you were to look at 85339, again, that has to do with Levine, and those numbers are up in the 80s and the 90s. If you were to look at Maricopa, we have students in both Mountain Point and Desert Vista, almost 300 students from those areas. When we look at numbers like 85041 in Phoenix for the baseline corridor and 85042, we're looking at significant numbers of well over 700 students coming from those areas that could impact our sites. We want to be safe. We want the kids in school. We also get a chance not only to look at these 2-week lag numbers, but I have shared that we've been working with our medical professionals, Dr. Woodbury and Dr. Overland, and sharing real-time numbers as well and predictions of those numbers over the last several weeks. And we see these numbers, and we will know that in the next couple of weeks that these numbers will be read. When we look at real-time numbers, even Dr. Christie today and the governor's press conference said we're well above 15% at this time. And so this is what we're looking at real time if we were to have our kids at our schools.
So my question to you is, if you're looking at this real time, why have you not shared that with any of us? Because I would like to have seen that so I could support your decision.
Well, I give out the data. It's not my decision per se. I want to make sure clear of that we all share in this decision. I give you the numbers. I have shared with you the predictions of what those numbers would be. This is not my data to share with the community. The university is nice enough to let me use that, but because the numbers lag, the state has that control of keeping it in a 2-week area. It only allows us to give prediction and also make recommendations.
Well, I have not seen any real-time data, and I'm not sure why we can't provide that to the community if we are making decisions to close, to go to virtual based on real time. I feel like that's not transparent or honest for our community. And I have not seen any real-time data.
I would be happy to show you some real-time data in my office if you would like.
Well, at some point, but I wish you would have done that 2 weeks ago or whenever you start looking at that, because this would have helped me support you, and I want to support your decision of going virtual.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lau, do you have any more questions?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Board Member Ham?
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'm going to move the topic just a little bit. First, I noticed that when some of the students have written to us, they have been concerned about gaps in their learning or just not being able to learn. And we do have the names of those students, many read to this evening. And I was hoping, Dr. Mendeville, that you could speak to the principals and possibly the principals speak to the teachers of those students have expressed having problems so that possibly we can find some extra support for them. So that's just a request from me. My second thing is, and I'm sorry I couldn't bring this to you sooner, but I just read today that the city of Phoenix has stopped sports. And I wondered, how will that impact Mountain Point and Desert Vista? Maybe you don't have an answer for me yet, because I think that's relatively new information.
Board Member Helm and Madam President, members of the board, that is a good question because it is recent, and I believe the decision by City of Phoenix was for tournament sports. So we will be reviewing that and to see how that will impact, if at all, Mountain Point and Desert Vista. But that just was released this evening. And then to your other point, Board Member Helm, absolutely. Whenever we hear students that are maybe struggling, whether it's this environment or we were in normal, typical session, we would respond to that. And I already have that noted that to get a hold of those students. And that's quite frankly for any student who may be experiencing additional struggle during this time.
Thank you. I was sure you would be on it as quickly as you could be. In many ways, I agree with Mrs. Lau in our transparency. And for that reason, I would urge you, if we're going to be closing schools in January for third quarter, whether it be a month or however long the data we might project being closed, I would urge you and the board to let people know sooner rather than later. Let them make some plans. Let our teachers make some plans. And let's not wait until 4 days or something before school is to start up. But instead, again, for transparency's sake, I think that should be done as soon as possible. And then I also, one last question, and then I'll let someone else speak. This may not be my only one. But the gap in learning, I too have, as an educator, have been very, very concerned about those students who are going to have this loss of learning. And I wondered I don't expect you to go in a lot of detail, but what are some of your plans that you're working on to close this gap in the learning of students? Thank you.
Board Member Helm, Madam President, members of the board, I'm going to be presenting on that next weekend, the next board meeting on a lot of that information, but I'll just give you a little preliminary glimpse. And we have been, with the principals, working on identifying those students, because some may think that that's a static number with a student who may be receiving a D or an F. It's a flexible number. It's not static by any means. And it's not static, as we know as an educator, that you're always trying to improve and figure out where students can turn in the assignment or do better on a test, retake, a variety of things. And so having a static number of how many D's or F's that are out there is something that we monitor on a fairly regular basis, but more at the beginning of the year. In this instance, it's been a bit more challenging because it truly is a static number with what's happening in the both learning environments. That being said, we've identified a number of students that fall within certain thresholds of potential in terms of a success plan, and that's who we've invited back to school even as early as starting on Monday to return back to school with a defined plan. And those remediations and accommodations will carry through to the end of this year, but also into next year. So, and we're also going to be implementing a winter intercession and offer that for teachers to maybe work three hours in the morning with students or in the afternoon, and invite specific students to come in and finish some work or retake a test or whatever, so that we can identify certain students who are on the threshold of success in terms of passing that class, and it's doable. There's hope for those kids. Then we have a whole other different plan for those kids that might fall even further behind. But I can tell you, I'm extraordinarily proud of our site teams and our teachers, because they're trying everything in their power to call and to text and to get kids to school, or to work on this project a second time, or extending the period of time. I mean, they are going far beyond the call of duty. And we have some students that are taking advantage of that and are finding, success. And then we're having students that are struggling no matter what, So we're going to monitor that. This doesn't end this quarter. It will extend into the third quarter. Our support and interventions will extend as long as necessary to get those kids to where they need to be and on a healthy trajectory for graduation at their due date.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Ham. Do you have any more questions? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. McDonald, for the presentation. I also want to state that I hear quite a bit that we hear that our sister districts to the east are doing closing in sections or zip codes or closing by schools. I think it's a little bit that I've done some research. None of the union high schools or the K through 8 are doing it. They're not closing like that. It's only the unified school districts that are breaking it up piece by piece when they close it. So it is different when you say, oh my God, why Chandler's doing this or Mesa's doing that. We have to look at the fact that Mesa and Chandler are unified districts versus us as a union district, and Kyrene as a K through 8 for Tempe L as a K through 8. So just want to say that. Also, I thank you for your information that you're going to do, because my concern is about our gap for our kids, especially our we've gotten a lot of emails with our kids who needed the most attention. So I'll be looking forward to the conversation on December 16th, because I do worry about our special needs and our kids who are more at risk with the D's and F's, and what we're going to do in the forward to the future. I also agree with Board Member Ham and Board Member Lau when we can give a little bit more time, because I think that people do need a little bit more time to adjust to that. But sometimes we don't have the time because how the metrics are, it doesn't give us the time to do it always. But if we can have that time, I would love for us to have more time to give our parents and our community a chance to react and to understand that we're going to go virtual for a little bit longer. So that's all I wanted to say. I just guess I had more of, not a question, but more of a comment. Does Vice President Garcia, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Yes, thank you so much, Madam President. really quick, Dr. McDonald, I recall that you have been sharing that you've been getting numbers and updates from ASU frequently. And also, can you touch on really quick before I go into my other points and questions? You briefly mentioned that there's a limit as to the how that data can be shared because the state has control over how it's released because they're working in conjunction with ASU. Can you elaborate a little more so we can have more clarity on what that is and what it looks like?
Sure. Dr. Woodbury at ASU has gotten permission for us to be able to see the data to try to make predictions and recommendations based off some more real-time data. It's actually about 2 days off, but rather the data is much more recent than, of course, the 2-week lag that we see. Because of that, we want to agree to that communication. We also know that the state holds that data in order to give as good numbers as they can when they release it. So it would be irresponsible of me to release data that has not been cleaned by the state before.
Thank you so much, Dr. McDonald, or Mr. McDonald.
Almost.
I'm ready to adopt it. Is there a way for us to request permission to see it, to what extent we're able to? Because I totally understand the, the call for transparency and the need to inform for planning purposes and others. But do you think that that's an avenue that they'll be willing to share or not?
I'd be happy to ask what my limitations are with that, and I'll ask them this week.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I'll just mention one more thing before I allow the board members to speak in. I just wanted to thank you all, the district, for really, taking into consideration all of our students, both our in-district and our open enrollment students. Treating them equally is very important to me because we have different needs and we want to make sure that we're, getting to all of our students. So thank you so much for that attention to detail and support for our students.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Board Member Barraza, do you have some comments?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Sean, for your presentation. I really appreciate it and all the hard work that everyone puts in. I through conversations with you, I know contact tracing has been overwhelming and increasingly so as the fall and winter seasons go on. I'm just curious in terms of the contact tracing aspect, where are we at? Can you give me a kind of a feel for how's everyone holding on to it? Because I know when, one situation can take up 16 hours of an individual's time. And when we're talking about our ADs and individuals that should be really focusing their time on student achievement in various ways that, they do per our school district, per each school, because contact tracing is very much given to an individual in our district. What can we expect, and how are we overwhelmed, and what should we be looking for in terms of contact tracing? Do we need support from the state? Because I know has not been supportive of any aspect of just being involved with the school districts at all. It's all been on your guys' shoulders. So I'm just curious, do we need the state to step up and get involved in contact tracing and testing? Because that's where I think we need to be at. I'm a little upset that the governor has been MIA this entire time and basically left it on your guys' shoulders and the teachers and the staff members. And the students are really hurting, and parents and community members are upset, rightfully. Taxpayer dollars should be going towards achievement, not survival. And so I'm pretty upset at the governor right now, just on not a political aspect, but just on a incident management level. I think he spends more time in Washington, and I think he needs to come and shake hands of our staff members at our schools and show that if he wants schools open, he needs to be out here, show a presence. That's real, true leadership. So since contact tracing is on your shoulders. You know, I know you guys are overwhelmed and you're not going to tell me that, but I've talked to many of your staff members and they are just hurting. They're just defeated. And staff members in our district, I walk into our district office, I walk into our schools, and everyone smiles and says good morning. But, you know, morale is very important to me, especially coming from an incident management background. And I know that everyone's overwhelmed, you know, from our entire staff. So contact tracing is a backbone of us being able to open schools and being able to achieve what we're doing with the hybrid model. So I know I said a lot, but can you give us just kind of an update on that?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Mr. Barraza. It gives me a good opportunity first to thank all the COVID point people and the contact tracers in our district. First and foremost, the athletic directors, activities people, our nurses, everybody has jumped in to do, Mr. Cobbs, I can't forget Charles Cobbs. Everybody's jumped in to do a tremendous job in making sure that our health mitigation plan is in place. I would also say that probably our health mitigation plan and our contact tracing is second to none in the state right now. It's because we believe of keeping our kids safe and keeping our staff safe. Yes, by doing that, we've sent home 915 people to isolate and quarantine over the time. And that's only been in about 6 weeks worth of time since we've came back. Our people are tired. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think they'd want it any other way right now in order to keep the kids safe. We do know that by going virtual, that will slow down quite a bit, as we will only have adults in our building, but we continue to monitor those students. And we have monitored our virtual and tool students as well. So we'll continue to do that. I do think that it will slow down a bit by being virtual, but we will continue to watch over them. We meet weekly to make sure that their morale and their answers and their questions are all answered, and to give them a little added support. So I thank you for that, and thank you for recognizing that.
Thank you, Sean, for that update. With that, in terms of the student population, you know, we have students, and it's so essential that they get the interaction amongst their peers, amongst their teachers. That inspiration spark occurs during this period in high school. And I know it's difficult, you know, it's, you know, we're going from virtual or to hybrid, or, you know, trying to adjust. The overwhelming aspect of everyone just trying to make sure that the ship doesn't sink, and we're all plugging a bunch of holes from district top down to our teachers on the ground, you know, making sure that students, you know, are engaged. And that is incredibly difficult right now. You know, if I were a student, I'd be very disengaged. It'd be tough. So, you know, really my focus is, if we're going virtual, what does that mean for our activities? And those students that aren't involved in clubs, how can we get them at least to participate in various ways? Now, I've always talked about how we should be, if we're going virtual, we should at least always engage in terms of extracurriculars. I know we can do that. If we can do that with the football team and football games in an aspect, or AIA in other sports, we can certainly do it with extracurriculars like kickball. And, you know, honestly, kickball may just be what we need, you know, right now, just to get kids out, you know, 10 kids on the field, 5 and 5 playing kickball. I know it sounds very simple, very like unthought out, but I got to tell you, sometimes it just cleared my head just to be out there with some kids, you know, when I was a kid, and just laughing when I was a teen parent, and just forgetting about what I have to deal with for a moment. So what can we do, or at least what are we doing right now? And I'd like you to think, you know, with your team, and how you can influence the thought that we can at least see how we can do those aspects, music, painting, you know, maybe in our fields, set up some etzels and teach art. It doesn't have to be a continuation, but I think just like that once in a while can maybe just kickstart something. So I know our teachers are overwhelmed. I know that can re-engage, but I'm just really worried about our students at this aspect going virtual and what that means for them. Because as a teen parent, I just felt like I missed out on a lot. And even now I think about it with my son when I think, you know, go to ASU, go live in the dorm, go do all this. And he's like, it's okay, whatever, I don't mind. To me, it's so important. I didn't get that and I wanted it. So I just feel like those are things that are going to stick with our students. And I really want to make sure.
So Board Member
Yes, sir.
Barraza, I'm going to respond to that just quickly. I'm not muted, okay. A lot of the accommodations and the flexibility that teachers implemented are in those activities. They'll resume those same kinds of flexible opportunities for students during this time, just as they did when we started the semester. Actually, they probably have some systems more clearly defined on how they are reaching those students and holding clubs and things like that. So all of that, I don't think that it's the correct assumption to just naturally assume all that stops. I think they're going to have to modify and adjust as they did, in August, September, and they'll try to continue as much as possible, and what would be appropriate for those clubs and different extracurricular programs. So that's a priority. I can tell you those special teachers, the CTE and the different kinds of club sponsors, they're going to want to continue and have some momentum going into this time. So we certainly can follow through with that. But I just talked with 3 today on a conference call, and they're planning away. So I'm confident that they'll be reaching out to students in a manner that would be safe and acceptable for everybody.
I really appreciate that. I really feel like we really need to push it a little further. I live by Marcos Mesa. I jog every morning in the afternoon, and I walk my dog by the high school. It'd be great to see just even a handful of kids play musical instruments out in the courtyard. I miss hearing the drum lines going on as I wake up in the morning. It doesn't seem to bother the community. We all enjoy that aspect. We love hearing the school and the sounds of the school. And, if a teacher asks to use a field, I would just hope that we can accommodate that, or in just maybe the bleachers to teach philosophy, have a class on the bleachers in the football field and just do it outdoors when we get to that point. Or right now, at least, hopefully we can accommodate, and I know we are. I know that right now it really is just about everyone having too much on their plate and just treading water from students to staff. So I'm just going to leave it at that in terms of that. But you all know that I've always had headbutt issues with my governing board members and with the district in terms of our hybrid model. Back in September, I've had issues with saying, we need to make sure the teachers get in the classroom and kick the tires and all that before they get in. And I really appreciate you all doing that. That's important. And I just want to make sure that moving forward, we all have opportunities to kick the tires, readjust as necessary. And I really do feel that the hybrid model, as adverse or as, criticizing as I was back in September, and then last meeting criticizing as the adjustment, I'm always going to be critical, but it doesn't mean that I'm not supportive. I think that the district is doing a great job. I think that we committed to it as a board, 5 members to the hybrid model. We all understood the zip code situation. We all understood what we need to be asking. We all understood what the dynamics is. Now it's changing. I'm a little uncertain on that, but I'm getting a lot more information from you guys every time, and I'm feeling more comfortable. The big thing is just make sure that moving forward, my big concern is just making sure that staff and students are part of the process. And up to now, I feel that they have been, but I always feel that we can be better. Thank you, Sean, for your presentation. Thank the team, please. And the district staff and teachers down. Everyone's overwhelmed, and I really feel it when I go tour the campuses. Thank you so much for allowing me to go tour the classrooms prior to opening up the classrooms and letting me kind of see what we're going to be doing. It really helps me to understand it, and for you taking the time to show me and walk me through how everything's going to be done. I know it takes a lot away from you, especially in this moment. So please thank everyone involved, and I appreciate the hard work everyone's doing.
Thank you so much, Board Member Barraza. Looks like Board Member Ham had another question.
Thank you, Madam President. I really do not have a question, but a couple of comments. We hear often from our parents that we're not following the science, and they quote Fauci or the CDC. I would hope that people would remember those people are looking at our country as a whole. They're not zeroing in on Arizona State. They are not zeroing in on Maricopa County. They are not zeroing in on our cities in Maricopa County. They are not zeroing in on our schools or our zip codes. We are looking at the data that is closest to our schools. Now, that said, I'm going to express an opinion that is probably not going to be well received. And that is, I have long felt that we should open or close schools as they're ready to be. In other words, as we start coming back, if we have a school that's numbers are good, why make them wait till the very last school has their numbers in a good category? I felt we shouldn't have closed, and I know I heard that's what the principals wanted, so we closed everybody at the same time. But I also think that isn't helpful to kids. If you've got school A that has good numbers, then open school A. Then open school B all the way until you finally get them open. Don't make kids wait on other schools. I think that is very, very wrong. All right, now I'll get off my soap opera. And my second thing is to thank you, Sean McDonald. I don't know that many people know that you had a busy schedule and job before COVID was put on your plate. And you have done an amazing job. I only hope that if you need an assistant, some help, some support, you will let us know, because I'm sure we can find funds to help you out in this capacity, so that you're not destroying your own health. And I do thank you for all that you do for this district. You're an outstanding employee. The same with Dr. Mendeville. You need extra support anywhere, please come to our board and say, I could use another assistant somewhere to do this data or to do something, because we don't want you all getting ill. We don't want you to stop being able to function. And I thank you both.
Thank you, Board Member Helm. I'd
We're
have one
blessed to
comment
have
on
my
that.
team as well. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Mr. McDonald. I have one comment. Can I make that? And this may, well, I'm just going to make this comment because I commented on this today in our executive team in our variety of discussions around this and learning gaps. And to your point about, you know, if we could be a little bit more individualized with how we approach going back and forth, if we need be based on the metrics to, you know, be virtual, be hybrid, be 4 days, what do the metrics tell us per school? And we have a meeting on Monday, and I said to the team today, you know, when the principals, because I have to trust the principals because they are leading those schools. Those are hard jobs under normal conditions. They're increasingly more difficult under these conditions. And so, but that was back then. That was several months ago. So I'm going to pose the question to them on Monday, and to see what, based on information we have today, right now, is that something that we may need to reflect on and maybe reconsider and talk about that? Because where we were 3 months ago is very different even today, how we handle things, what we know, and all of that. So, I'm anxious to have that discussion with them on Monday.
Thank you, Board Member. Thank you, Dr. Mendeville. We have Board Member Lau.
So I want to make sure that everyone knows how much I appreciate what this district and schools do. I have visited 3 schools recently, sharing my deep gratitude to not only the principals and assistant principals, but to the teachers. And I have stopped in a few of the teachers' rooms, those that I have known for so long. I think that everyone is under immense pressure and they're working. I talked to 3 athletic assistant principals. They're working Sundays and long hours every day. And I understand that maybe we can't keep that up. And if that's the reason we go virtual, then so be it. But my point here is share with our community why we're making decisions. And as far as the real-time data goes, I believe Board Member Garcia had asked if we could share with the community. I truly believe that if we're using that to support going to virtual, but we can't share that with our community, then we shouldn't be using it. Because who knows what we're using. We need to be very open with our community. So I say we use the county metrics for making decisions like going virtual. It seems very underhanded, and I know we wouldn't be dishonest about it, but there's no accountability if we're using data that we can't share. So that's my opinion on that. The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, and Mrs. Helm really talked about all the experts and the health experts, and they don't know Arizona. I have searched high and low for a consistent opinion from health experts about shutting schools or going to virtual. I have not found that. In fact, what I have found that as long as a district has spent some time and money in developing a detailed health mitigation plan, there should be little reason for our kids to go virtual. Now, an article was brought to the attention of many this week by a Dr. Wen. She was in the Washington Post, and she talked about how all schools should close until we can absolutely prove that no child is catching COVID within our schools. But then she goes down, there's 2 paragraphs that she talks about. However, if a district has the funds and has developed a detailed mitigation program or a pattern, there should be no reason for us to go virtual. And I believe we've done that. We have hand sanitizers, we have masks, distancing. The teachers are sterilizing desks every hour. We have our custodians throughout the whole day sterilizing handrails and fountains. We have temperatures being taken. We've increased our air circulation, and we have changed our filters to be more high efficient. So we have done so much to protect our people inside our school district, is into our schools. And I understand what's going on in the environment is not good, but we have not yet traced anything, as of what I've seen, for someone catching something within our schools. And I do think we need to consider that when we talk about going virtual. I think there's several factors here, and I hope that we will consider that moving forward. And I believe if there's reasons why we want to go virtual because we can't find subs, right now it's working. As far as I know, the principals are being very innovative. So when teachers have to go virtual because they're in quarantine, they are finding staff that go into that classroom, or they're bringing kids to a bigger room and having someone staff and look over them during that period. We may get to a time where we don't have that manpower. And if that's it, so be it. But my point tonight is we have to be very honest with our community, and we have to share all these reasons and what's going on. I think then we are going to get much more support and understanding from our parents and our students and our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Lau. I'm so sorry. Is there anybody else who have any other questions? Okay, Board Member Braza.
Just more or less a clarification question. Board Member Lau, would you prefer we open the classrooms? And if so, like what should, like, I mean, the hybrid model is just so, you know, where do you stand on that is more or less, because I'm trying to gauge where my board members lie on the issue. I'm torn between us trying to figure out what the hybrid model means, and I've had conversations with Sean McDonald about it, but I'm just more or less interested in your concerns, just clarification.
So my iPad is acting up. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
What I hope happens is that Dr. Mandeville is exploring some options for January. I do believe that the hybrid model has tons of problems and it's creating exhaustion by our teachers. And I hope in January what we can, if we are still, we're going to still be doing something like this. I hope that our teachers can either be teaching kids in class or they're teaching virtual. They're not teaching both. I think that has become a challenge. I think a few teachers have really excelled, but most are exhausted from this, and I don't think it's ideal, but it's what we have today. So I'm hoping we explore that in January. We can do something like that.
So let me comment on that because
well, really quick, okay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you, Board Member Lau, for your clarification. That's all I really wanted was just kind of to understand, like, moving forward. I really understand where you're at, and that I appreciate that. Thank you.
And as mentioned in the discussion that I think, or comments from the last board meeting, I was planning and did already meet today, in fact, at 3 o'clock for an hour and a half with representatives, teacher representatives from each of the school sites to talk about just this. You know, what could we do differently? Should we return virtually? Should we return in some hybrid model fashion? And we had and Mrs. Hilgers was there along with Dr. Wilson, and it was a very, very productive meeting, and we're scheduled to do the same thing next Wednesday. But their input is incredible. We're on the mark with a lot of suggestions that we've made so far. So I'm anxious to solidify some of those comments and to be realistic of some things that we can do now that will impact us when we return in whatever capacity, but also to look a little bit long-term into February and March too. So an excellent group of teachers that I met with today. I'm so proud of them. But the input I got from them was valuable. So I'll share more as I know more.
Thank you so
just
much.
really quick, my apologies, Dr. If, last meeting had the question about teachers, the input aspect of that, and is there a way you can just kind of give us a breakdown in terms of, board members during our board prep, and maybe give the community some information at the next board meeting in terms of the tone of students, tone of teachers, and moving forward, just kind of where we're at. I know there's a lot, and we heard a lot tonight, and I think that really does speak to the tone. Just as a board member, I'm just curious as the feedback. I don't know if that needs to be agendized or something, or if it's just something we need to talk through. But it's important enough to me and everyone else as board members that we get that information. And
right.
The last thing is just, are we at the current model of the hybrid for the last semester, and we're discussing moving forward next semester? Is that the clarification? I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around what we're discussing in a cleaner perspective, I guess.
Right. Board Member Barraza and members of the board, we are in the virtual mode, which is part of our model, our programming. And right now I'm gathering the input from teachers and from district staff on what changes we could make to our service delivery model when we return, whether that's and how we return in January. That's what I'm working on right now.
If there's a way we can add an aspect of the student comment since we're taking teacher participation and staff participation, if there's a way that they can maybe give a student ID.
I'm going to have to stop you. This part of we can't go to this conversation. This got to be agendized. This is not a part of the agenda. Dr. Mendenville and Dr. Board Member Barraza, this part of the conversation you're having is not a part of the agenda. So is there any other questions on the on Sean McDonald's presentation?
I would
Okay,
like to
Board
say
Vice.
something if I could to Mrs. Lau. I appreciate you noticing the importance of the health mitigation plan. But I will tell you that it's only as good as what we are doing on the outside of our schools as well. And so I plead with the community and that we really take care of each other on the outside so that we don't bring it into our schools. And then you're exactly right. We can try to get back into in-person and do what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. It looks like Vice President Garcia has one last comment for us, or questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Madam President. I just wanted a moment to elaborate on a few different things, but first, I just want to recognize and acknowledge that the district is doing the best that they can despite all the different moving pieces and circumstances and changing dynamics. It's incredibly hard to adjust so frequently, but I think you've all done the job within your power and the things that we can control. Unfortunately, not everything is in our control, but you are doing what you can with that and adjusting as we see fit. And, you know, I agree there are areas of improvement to help communicate more of that to the community. But I think we should have some grace in that flexibility because some things do come up. And so kind of having that balance there. With respect to the real-time data, while I agree that, you know, that information needs to be shared, should, you know, it be allowed by the state, I also don't want to be breaking any laws in doing so. But from my understanding, the state does use the information that ASU does provide in addition to the county. So I don't have a distrust with those numbers, especially if they're experts in looking at those. But again, reiterating that if we don't have that permission, I don't want to break that any laws, but trying our best to communicate what we do have. With respect to mitigation plans, yeah, we've been fortunate enough that we're not like other school districts in the East Valley that have been ballooning primarily because of our mitigation plan and contact tracing. And that does take a lot of resources and time away from our staff that, you know, they might be able to be doing student intervention work with our students directly. So it does take away time away from our staff to help our students that do need that additional support. And contact tracing has also revealed that many are not following our mitigation plans or behaving in the appropriate manner outside of school grounds. So I think it's something also to keep the forefront of. And, you know, if possible, we never know truly how many students do come in and share their testing. But you know, if there's an opportunity for us to enhance and supplement that testing, so we do have more accurate numbers. Obviously, we have the data, what we have, and we're operating off of it. But if we're able to do that, and then the last thing I want to end on is, you know, when we're looking at when we start going back into in-person, because like everyone else, this is incredibly frustrating, and I'm upset that that so many of our students are suffering, and we all know in-person is the best modality of instruction. There's no question about that. But in a time when there's a pandemic and we're looking to shifting staff to cover classes, I even think that we don't have enough subs for those, and we're merging other teachers to cover those. I'm not even sure how much the students are gaining in that degree as well. And then if we're merging those classes, that really doesn't align well with our mitigation plan to begin with. So I just want to be cognizant of burdening our staff more because our teachers are burnt out. And I want to be in a position to support our teachers and our staff because this is not easy work. And our students deserve the best education that they can. And I know that you all are doing the best that you can to make sure we provide the best excellent education, but also getting to a place back to normal when hopeful sooner rather than later. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vice President Garcia. That was well said. I I second you on a lot of those the statements you said. So at this time, it looks like we have closed out this part of our meeting. Our next regular meeting is December 16th. May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, and a second.
Madam President, I second.
Thank you so much. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Please stay safe and healthy and have a wonderful night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.